What if the reason you haven't made it yet has nothing to do with your talent, your luck, or your situation? What if it's something you're doing every single day without even noticing? Because, let's be honest, you've tried. You've had those moments where you felt fired up, motivated, ready to change everything. You told yourself, this time is different. And for a few days, maybe even a week, it was. You woke up earlier, you focused more, you actually felt in control. And then, something slipped. You missed one day, then another. Then suddenly, you were right back where you started. Same habits, same thoughts, same frustration. And the worst part, you don't even know why. It just keeps happening. So you start thinking, maybe I'm just not disciplined. Maybe I don't have what it takes. Maybe this just isn't for me. But wait, what if that's not true? What if you're not the problem, but the way you've been taught to think is? Because here's something nobody tells you. You don't fail because you're lazy. You fail because you're inconsistent. And inconsistency isn't a personality trait. It's a pattern. A pattern you've been repeating without realizing it. Now think about this for a second. How many times have you started something with full energy only to stop halfway? Gym, projects, plans, ideas. You don't lack ambition, you lack follow-through. And yeah, that stings a little, but it's also the truth that can change everything. Because if the problem is inconsistency, then the solution isn't motivation, it's structure. But this is where it gets uncomfortable, because structure feels boring. It feels restrictive. It doesn't give you that emotional high. And your brain? It loves the high. It loves starting. It loves imagining success. But it hates the middle, the repetition, the monotony, the slow progress. So what do? You chase the feeling again. You start something new, something exciting, something fresh, and for a moment, you feel alive again. Until the same cycle repeats. Be honest, does this feel familiar? Because if it does, you're not alone. Most people live their entire lives in this loop, starting, stopping, restarting, and calling it trying. But trying isn't enough. Consistency is. And this is where things start to shift. Because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. You start noticing it everywhere. That moment when you say, I'll start tomorrow. That moment when you choose comfort over progress. That moment when you know exactly what to do, but you don't do it. Now here's the question nobody asks. Why? Why do we keep doing this, even when we know better? Why do we sabotage ourselves right when things start working? It doesn't make sense. Or at least, it doesn't seem like it does. But there's a reason, a deeper one. And once you understand it, everything changes. Because it's not about discipline. It's not about time. It's about identity. The version of you've been reinforcing for years. But before we go there, there's something you need to see first. Something most people ignore. And it's quietly destroying your progress every single day. This next part, it might make you uncomfortable. But it's also the moment things start to click. It's not your habits. It's not your schedule. It's not even your environment. It's the story you keep telling yourself about who you are. Because every time you say, I'm bad at consistency, I always quit, I can't stay focused, you're not describing yourself. You're programming yourself. And your brain? It listens. It takes that identity and turns it into behavior. So even when you try to change, there's a quiet voice in the background saying, this isn't you. And eventually, you go back to what feels familiar. Not because it's right, but because it's known. Now think about that for a second. How many times have you proven yourself right instead of proving yourself wrong? You don't just act based on what you want, you act based on who you believe you are. And that belief? It's been built over years, through small moments, missed promises, broken routines, delayed starts, each one adding another layer to the identity, the person who doesn't follow through. Now here's the part nobody tells you. You don't need more discipline. You need a new identity. But this is where resistance shows up, because changing your identity feels fake at first. It feels like lying to yourself, like pretending to be someone you're not. So you stop. You go back. You say, "This isn't working." But here's the truth. It's not supposed to feel real at the beginning. It becomes real through repetition, through proof, through small wins stacked over time. But wait till you hear this. The biggest mistake people make here? They try to change everything at once. Wake up at 5 a.m., hit the gym, eat clean, work harder, stay focused all day. And for a few days, they do it. Then they burn out. And guess what that reinforces? I knew I couldn't do it. See the trap? You're not failing because you can't change. You're failing because you're overwhelming yourself, trying to become a new person overnight, instead of building that person, one action at a time. Now imagine this. Instead of trying to fix your entire life, you focused on one thing, just one, something small, something almost too easy, like doing one task you've been avoiding, just one, and then stopping. Sounds simple, right? Almost pointless. But it's not, because that one action does something powerful. It creates evidence, evidence that says, I follow through. And that's how identity changes, not through motivation, through proof. Now let me ask you something. Which one are you right now? A, the person who keeps restarting. B, the person who's starting to follow through. Don't overthink it. Just notice your instinct, because wherever you are, that's your starting point. And here's the good news. You don't need to jump from A to B overnight. You just need to move slightly forward, because every small action is a vote for the person you're becoming. Now here's where it gets real. You're going to feel resistance. Your mind will say, this is too small to matter. This won't change anything. What's the point? That's the old identity trying to survive, because it knows if you keep showing up, even in small ways, it starts to lose control. And that's when everything begins to shift, slowly, quietly, but permanently. Now here's the part most people miss. Consistency isn't about doing more. It's about doing less, but doing it every day. And yeah, it sounds boring, but boring is what works. Boring is what builds momentum. Boring is what separates people who try from people who actually change. So the real question isn't, can you do something big? It's, can you do something small, consistently? Because that's where your future is hiding, not in big moments, in repeated ones. And this next part, this is where everything either falls apart or finally comes together.
And this is where most people quietly lose. Not at the beginning, not even in the middle, but right here, when things stop feeling exciting. Because at first, change feels powerful. You're aware, you're focused, you're doing things differently. And for a moment, you feel like you figured it out. But then, it gets quiet. No big results, no instant rewards, no visible progress, just repetition. And that's when the doubt creeps in. Is this even working? Shouldn't I be further by now? Maybe this isn't enough. And without realizing it,
You start slowing down. You skip a day, then another. Then suddenly, you're back in the old pattern again. Not because you failed, but because you got impatient. Now here's the truth most people avoid. Success is boring. It's repetitive. It's slow. It's almost invisible, at first. And that's why most people never reach it, because they're addicted to progress they can see. But real progress happens beneath the surface, quietly, like roots growing before the tree shows. And if you don't understand that, you'll quit too early, every time. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever stopped something right before it started working? Think about it. That habit you dropped, that routine you quit, that goal you walked away from. What if you were closer than you thought? What if you just didn't stay long enough to see the result? Most people won't admit this part, but they don't fail because it's hard. They fail because it takes longer than they expected. And patience? That's uncomfortable, because it forces you to trust something you can't see yet. Now here's where it shifts. You stop chasing results, and you start building standards, because results fluctuate. Some days you'll feel progress, some days you won't. But standards? They don't change. I show up. I follow through. I finish what I start, no matter what. That becomes your rule, not your mood, not your motivation, your rule. And once that happens, everything stabilizes. Because now you're not relying on how you feel. You're relying on what you've decided. Now here's something subtle, but powerful. When you stop negotiating with yourself, you remove the mental chaos. No more, should I do this? No more, maybe later. No more, I'll start tomorrow. It's just done. And that simplicity? That's where momentum lives. But let's be real. This isn't easy, because your brain will still try to pull you back. It will remind you how comfortable it used to be, how easy it was to delay, to avoid, to escape. And sometimes, you'll want to go back. That's normal. That's part of the process. Now here's a quiet confession. Most people think strong people don't feel this, that they're always disciplined, always focused. But that's not true. They feel the same resistance. They just don't obey it. That's the difference. Not the absence of struggle, but the decision to act anyway. So the next time you feel that resistance, that urge to stop, to delay, to choose comfort, pause for a second and ask yourself, is this who I want to be? Not, what do I feel like doing? But, who am I becoming right now? Because every moment, you're reinforcing something. Either the old version of you or the new one. And that choice? It happens more often than you think. Now imagine this. 6 months from now. Same life, same habits, same patterns. Nothing changed. How does that feel? Heavy? Frustrating? Predictable? Now imagine the opposite. You stayed consistent. Not perfect, just consistent. You kept showing up, even on the days you didn't feel like it. Where would you be? That gap between those two futures comes down to one thing. What you do today. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. And this next part, this is what locks everything in. The final shift. The one that makes this change stick.
And this is the shift that most people never make. The one that separates almost from actually. Because up until now, you've been trying to change your life without changing your standards. You've been hoping things will improve while still tolerating the same behaviors. And that's why nothing sticks. Because what you tolerate, you allow. And what you allow becomes your life. So if you tolerate distraction, you live distracted. If you tolerate inconsistency, you stay inconsistent. If you tolerate delay, you stay stuck. It's that simple. And yeah, that truth hits a little harder. But this is where everything changes. Because once you see it, you can't ignore it anymore.
Now here's the real question. What are you still tolerating? That habit you keep excusing? That delay you keep justifying? That comfort you keep choosing, even when you know it's costing you? Take a second. Don't rush this, because your answer is the reason you haven't made it yet. Not your lack of talent, not your situation, not your timing, your tolerance. Now here's the shift. You don't need more motivation. You need higher standards. A line you refuse to cross. A version of yourself you refuse to betray. And it starts small, quiet, almost invisible. I don't skip this anymore. I don't delay this anymore. I don't lie to myself anymore. That's it. No big speech, no dramatic change, just a decision. And then you act like it's true, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. Because that's the test, not when it's easy, when it's hard. Now here's something most people misunderstand. Discipline isn't something you have, it's something you practice, daily, moment by moment, choice by choice. And every time you choose growth over comfort, you reinforce something powerful, self-trust. And that's what you've been missing. Not knowledge, not ability, trust. Because right now, there's a gap between what you say you'll do and what you actually do. And that gap, it destroys confidence, quietly, slowly. But every time you follow through, even on something small, you close it. And once that gap closes, everything changes. You stop doubting yourself. You stop overthinking. You stop needing motivation. Because you trust that you'll do what needs to be done. Now let's be honest. This isn't perfect. You will slip. You will have days where you fall back, where you choose comfort, where you delay again. That doesn't mean you failed. It means you're human. The difference now is you don't stay there. You catch it faster. You correct it quicker. You move forward anyway. And that's what builds real momentum. Not perfection, recovery, consistency after the mistake. Now imagine this version of you, the one who doesn't wait to feel ready, the one who doesn't negotiate with excuses, the one who shows up even when it's hard. That version of you, it's not far away. It's built, one decision at a time, starting now. So here's the truth. You haven't made it yet, not because you can't, but because you've been tolerating what's holding you back. And now, you see it. So the question isn't, can you change? It's, will you stop accepting less than you're capable of? Because from this moment on, every choice is a vote for comfort or a vote for growth. And over time, those votes decide everything. Your habits, your identity, your life. So don't wait for a perfect moment. Don't wait to feel ready. Just act. One small decision. That's all it takes to begin. And if something in this made you pause, made you think, made you feel a little uncomfortable, don't ignore it. That's awareness. And awareness is where change starts. Most people will feel this and go right back to their old patterns. But you don't have to. You can choose differently, right now. And this connected with you. Don't just scroll past it. Subscribe and start becoming the person you've been telling yourself you'd be.